Now, when you start a new project in InDesign, there are a lot of ways to begin. You can create a new document from scratch, start from a template, and a lot more. In this video, you'll start a new project by creating a new document. With the latest version of InDesign CC open, you'll see this start screen, which appears when there are no documents open. In the start screen, you can open existing files and create new files. And whether or not the start screen is showing, you can always go to the File menu at the top of the screen to open existing documents or create a new document. To start a new document from scratch, choose File, New, Document. The New Document dialog box appears. Yours may look different from what you see here, and that's okay. First, choose a preset option like Print, Web, or Mobile, depending on the type of document you're creating. You'll create a document for a brochure that's meant to be saved as a PDF and printed later on. So click Print to show a series of preset document sizes for a print document. By choosing the print preset, you're setting several options, including color used and measurement units. After you choose a preset, whether it's print or another one, there are different preset page sizes to begin with. You can even click View All Presets to see more. Select Tabloid to set the page size, and know that when you choose a preset size, you can always change the size and all the other options later on after the document has been created. There is also a series of templates found in the New Document dialog box available from Adobe stock. These templates can be a great way to learn how InDesign projects are built, and they can also be used as a way to jumpstart a project for a client, for instance. The templates you see will most likely be different since new templates are added all the time. Now on the right side of this dialog box, you'll see a series of options you can set. Most of the time you won't have to set all these options, but let's look at the options you'll set most. Click to highlight the name and change it to Flyer. You don't really have to change the name here, but when you save the document later, this name becomes the name of the file. Click Picas and from the menu choose Inches. These are called the document units. Later when you want to measure something or look at a ruler, this is the measurement unit you'll see. Now you can create a custom document size by changing the width and the height of the document if you want to. You can also change the orientation by clicking one of these options. Click Landscape so the document is in a landscape orientation. Deselect the Facing Pages option here. A facing page document is something like a magazine or a book where pages can be arranged in spreads. Now this document will be a flyer, so it'll only be a single page, which means facing pages does not need to be selected. You can start with a number of pages, but you can also do that after the document is created. There are a lot of other options you can set to fine-tune the document before you get started. You'll become more familiar with these options the more you work in InDesign. For now, click Create to create the new document and open it in InDesign. Once the new document is open, you can change the document settings you first set in the Properties panel to the right of the document. To change the size of the initial page, you can choose a preset page size from this menu, or enter custom values here. You can change the orientation and do a lot more. Now to save the document, you can choose File, Save. Choose a place to save the document and make sure the InDesign document is selected for the format. Notice the name of the file is Flyer. And click Save. Creating new documents in InDesign is something you'll do often. There are a lot of options to explore when setting up a new document, but at first you can keep it simple and know that you can edit document settings like the page size later as you become more familiar with them. In Adobe InDesign, we save and work in a file called an InDesign document that has a .indd extension. But there are a lot of other file types you can save or export your work as, depending on your needs. In this video, you'll save a practice file and explore some of the different formats available when you save or export. To follow along, you can either open an InDesign file you have, or open this file from the practice files you downloaded for this tutorial by choosing File, Open. To save a file, you can choose File, Save. In this case, you'll save this file with another name, essentially making a copy, by choosing Save As. Saving a copy of a file is a great way to make a backup for yourself, or to save the state the document is currently in, so maybe you can go back to that point later, for instance. So choose File, Save As. In the Save As dialog box, you can choose a location to save the file. Make sure that InDesign document is the chosen format. Change the file name, maybe adding something like V2 for version 2. Then click Save to save the file. Now you'll find that in order for someone else to open the InDesign file you just saved, they'll need to have InDesign or Adobe InCopy on their computer. That also means that if they can open the file with InDesign, they can probably edit it. At times, you may want to just send a visual of the artwork you're creating in InDesign so someone who doesn't have InDesign can view it. You can do this by saving your document as a PDF. Anyone with a free PDF reader can then view the PDF file. So let's save this file as a PDF. Choose File, Export. In the Export dialog box that opens, you can choose Adobe PDF Print as the format. You'll see other formats in this menu, like EPUB, which is typically used for electronic books or ebooks. You'll also see PDF Interactive. That's a PDF that has interactive features like buttons, links, video, and more. Or maybe HTML for a website. To save as a PDF, make sure Adobe PDF Print is chosen, and click Save. In the Export Adobe PDF dialog box, you can change options depending on what you're using the PDF for. Maybe to post it on a website, or print it, or both. You'll learn more about saving for PDF and the options in the last part of this Getting Started series called Share InDesign Projects. For now, click Export to create the PDF. Now you may see this PDF Comments panel open. If you do see it, come up to the PDF Comments tab at the top, right-click on it, and choose Close. You'll learn more about working with panels and different content in the workspace in the next video. You can close the open file in InDesign by choosing File, Close without saving if asked. Knowing how to save or export your files in Adobe InDesign also allows you to save copies of your InDesign files, maybe to create a version of the document you're working on or share your design with others for review as a PDF. Let's take a tour of Adobe InDesign so you can become familiar with the workspace and the tools available. With the latest version of InDesign CC open, you can open your own document or this document from the practice files for this tutorial. Once a file is open, you see the workspace. The workspace is made up of an open document in the document window, this area, the menus at the top of the application bar below the menus, the tools panel on the left, and finally, panels that are docked on the right, like the Properties panel. As you explore InDesign, you'll find that you can arrange this workspace to have things you use all the time easily accessible, or maybe to show more of the document you're working on and less of the tools and panels. In the Tools panel on the left, you see all of the tools you can use to create and edit content in your documents. Some of the tools have a little arrow in the corner, which means there are more tools you can choose from. For example, press and hold down on the rectangle tool to see a menu of tools. Then choose the ellipse tool from the menu that appears. You can now see the ellipse tool is selected. Come back up to this selection tool or the black arrow up here and select it. The selection tool is a tool you use a lot to do things like select and move content. With it selected, come out to the document and click to select this image. If you look in the Properties panel to the right of the document, the Properties panel shows options for the content you select, and the options change depending on what's selected. Panels, like the Properties panel, are where you can work with pages, apply formatting like colors, and a whole lot more. Click the Pages panel tab at the top to show the Pages panel. The Pages panel is grouped with the Properties panel and the CC Libraries panel here. To show the Properties panel again, click the Properties panel tab, and it'll hide the Pages panel. If you find that you need more space in the document window to work on your document, you can click the arrow at the top of the dock panels to collapse the panels. If you want to see the panels again, you can click the arrow again. These docked panels and others are found in the Window menu at the top of the screen. Any panel that has a check mark is open and currently showing. This is also where you'll find the Tools and the Properties panel as well. Let's open another panel. Choose Text Wrap from this Window menu to open the Text Wrap panel. This panel is called free-floating because it's not docked with the other panels on the right. You can move free-floating panels by dragging the title bar at the top or the Panel tab. You can also dock one or more of the panels on the left or right side of the workspace. To dock the text wrap panel, drag the panel by the tab, the name up here, to the right onto the panel tabs at the top up here. When a blue highlight appears around the Properties panel group, release. The text wrap panel is now added to the group. As you start opening and closing and moving panels, you may find you want to reorganize and clean up the workspace. To do this, you can reset the workspace. Click Essentials in the application bar above the document and choose Reset Essentials to put all of the panels back to their default locations. In this menu, if you see something else chosen to start, choose Essentials first and then choose Reset Essentials. Organizing your workspace can make working in InDesign faster and easier. Now that you have an idea of how to manipulate the workspace, you can begin to customize your InDesign workspace to your individual working style. Navigating in your documents by zooming and panning will make it much easier to work in InDesign. In this video, you'll explore how to zoom in a document and also how to pan in the document window. With the latest version of InDesign open, you can open your own document or this document from the downloadable practice files for this tutorial. Now, there are a lot of ways to move around in an InDesign document. We'll start by discussing what are called view commands. When you open an InDesign file, you'll most likely see one or more pages in the document to start. So that you can fit the page or pages into the document window, choose View, Fit Page in Window. Then click back on the View menu. View commands like Fit Page in Window or Actual Size work on the page showing in the document window. You can try experimenting with some of these other commands like Actual Size, but make sure you choose Fit Page in Window before moving on. Another way to focus on the content you're working on is by zooming in and out. When working with content, sometimes you need to enlarge it to see more detail. We can do this using the Zoom tool and other methods. In the Tools panel on the left, click to select the Zoom tool. Come out into the document window and click once to zoom in a set amount. Where you clicked is now in the center of the document window. Try clicking a few more times to zoom in really closely. Now, if you want to zoom out in your document or make things smaller so you can see more, with the Zoom tool selected, press the Option key on Mac or Alt key on Windows, and you'll see a minus sign in the Zoom tool pointer now. Click several times to zoom out, and then release the key. Now, suppose you need to move around in the document, maybe to a different area. You can do that by panning within the document window. In the Tools panel on the left, select the Hand tool. Then come out into the document window. Press and drag to move around. You can think of this as similar to moving a piece of paper on your desk. If you drag up far enough in the document window, you can see that this document has more than one page. In this particular document, there are 5 pages. You can have a lot of pages in one document, and they can also be different sizes. Maybe to design multiple versions of a flyer or newsletter, for instance. It's a great way to be able to share assets and colors and different things you'll use in those different pieces. In a later lesson, you'll learn more about navigating and working with pages. But for now, make sure you drag up until you see this page. To ensure that you see the entire page, choose View, Fit Page in Window. The currently selected page is fit into the document window. Just below the document window, you'll see the View menu. This is where you can see the current zoom level. By clicking the menu, you can zoom to 100%, 4000%, whatever you happen to need. Choose 25% from the menu to zoom out. At this zoom level, you'll probably be able to see some of the other pages in the document. Another really useful method for zooming in InDesign is to use the View commands for zooming. Click the View menu at the top of the screen, and you'll see Zoom In and Zoom Out. Choose Zoom In. It's like using the Zoom tool to zoom in, it's zooming in by a set amount. So that you can see the entire page again, choose View, Fit Page in Window. Being able to navigate your document by panning and zooming will be really important when working in InDesign. It'll allow you to see more detailed content close up, for instance, or even take a step back to view the entire document. Frames in InDesign are an essential part of page layout. Aside from holding graphics and text, frames can act as graphic elements. In this video, you'll create a frame using the frame tools, round the corners, and also apply a color fill. You can open this practice file from the downloadable practice files for this tutorial if you want to follow along. Now, to see the different types of shapes you can create, in the Tools panel on the left, press and hold down on the Rectangle tool. These tools are great for creating unassigned frames, or frames that are also graphic design elements, like a color box behind text that improves readability. If you create a frame and later change your mind about how you want to use it, in other words, add text or graphic, you can always add text or a graphic to it. Select the Rectangle tool and come out into the page. You'll create a frame of the color that will go behind this text. So starting here, press and drag to create a frame. As with any frame, if you press the Shift key while drawing, you'll constrain the proportions so the width and height are the same. When the frame is roughly this size, release the mouse. Now, if you need to resize a frame to a specific size, with the frame selected in the Properties panel to the right, you'll see the properties for it, including its position relative to the upper left corner of the document, its size, and a lot more. To change the width, click the W to select the value in the width field. This way of selecting a value works for almost all of your fields. Change the value to 3.3, then click the H to select the height value and type in 1.6. Press Return or Enter to accept the change. Now you'll add a fill color since frames created with these tools have no fill by default. So click the fill color in the Properties panel. Make sure you can see the default color swatches by selecting the Swatches option and select the color to apply it. You can then press Escape to hide the colors. Notice that the stroke or border has a color and also a stroke weight or size. Frames drawn with the shape tools have a stroke by default. In the Properties panel, click the down arrow to remove the stroke, making sure the stroke weight is set to 0. Now this frame needs to be behind the text. You can arrange content to change its stacking order on the page. With the shape selected, click the Arrange button in the Quick Actions section of the Properties panel and choose Send Backward. The shape is sent behind the next object in the stacking order, which is the text. To move the frame into position, select the Selection tool in the Tools panel and drag the frame so it's roughly centered on the text here. Finally, you'll round the corners of the shape. With the shape still selected, click the yellow box on the right side here to begin adjusting the corners. Move the pointer over a yellow corner and a tooltip with instructions will appear. Drag the yellow corner to the left to round the corners a little. If you ever need to remove the rounded corners, you can drag any of these yellow anchors all the way back to a corner. You can also adjust options for the rounded corners. In the Properties panel on the right, if you need the corner radius values to be an exact value or consistent across shapes, you can enter a value. Change the corner radius to 0.25. All 4 corners are changing, but you can also click the word corner here to see the corner options dialog box. You can deselect the Make All Settings the Same option to change the corner values independently. We don't need to do that, so click Cancel. You can also click the Corner Shape option and choose one to see the effect on the corners. Before you continue, make sure the corners are actually rounded. Then click away from the shape to deselect it. Now that you know how to create a frame that's useful as a graphic element or one that holds other content, you can use them for different purposes in your own layouts. After creating frames in InDesign, you'll most likely need to transform them in different ways to fit them into your designs. Now, in order to finish this flyer, you'll explore rotating and flipping frames, as well as locking and hiding content within them. You can open this file from the practice files for this tutorial if you want to follow along. Transformations you apply to content can be found in the Properties panel to the right of the document, and also in the Transform panel found under Window, Object and Layout, Transform. You'll focus on working with the Properties panel. With the Selection tool selected, click to select this image in the background. Make sure not to click in the Content Grabber in the center, because then you'll select the image and not the frame. In the Properties panel, you'll see a few options for transforming the content. To see more options for transforming, click More Options in this Transform section here. Each of the points you see here in this box represents a point on the selected frame. For instance, the upper left point here is the upper left point on the frame over here. Now you need to flip the image around the center since it's already in position. So click the center point here if it's not already selected. Going forward, any transformations you make, which could be flipping, rotating, or other, will be around the center of the selected content. Then, click the Flip Horizontal option here to flip the image horizontally across the center. Now you'll explore rotating content like this text. Click away from the image to deselect it, then click to select the text. Move the pointer just off a corner of the text frame and a rotate arrow appears. Drag to rotate around the center by default. The rotation angle should show as you drag. And while you're dragging, press the Shift key and you can constrain the angle to 45 degrees. When you see -90 degrees in the label next to the pointer, release the mouse button and then the Shift key. After rotating the text, look in the Properties panel. If you click More Options in the Transform section again, you can see the rotation angle. You could change that value here as well, even resetting it to 0 to remove the rotation. The rotation options you see here would have also worked since they rotate content 90 degrees either clockwise or counterclockwise. To move the text into position, drag it over here. Now that the text is where it needs to be, you can lock its position to avoid accidentally moving or selecting it. With it selected, choose Object, Lock. The text now has a lock icon in the corner and you can't select it. Later, if you need to select it again, maybe to edit the text, you can unlock it by choosing Object, Unlock All on Spread, which unlocks everything on this page. If you just wanted to unlock this text frame, you could also click this lock icon to unlock just this object. Leave it locked for now. When working with a lot of page content or content that's close together, it can actually be useful to temporarily hide content so you can focus on other things. Suppose that you need to edit the black frame beneath this text. To make it a bit easier to select, you could hide the text. With the selection tool, click the text to select it. Then to hide it, choose Object, Hide to temporarily hide the text. Click the black frame and drag the upper left corner from the center to make it larger. Now to show the text again, choose Object, Show All on Spread. Now you know the basics of transforming content in InDesign. The more you explore in here, the more tools and methods you'll discover for transforming content in your own projects. In InDesign, you may need to align objects to each other, maybe to create a row of aligned images, or you may want to keep objects together by creating a group of all the content in your page header, for example. In order to complete this flyer, you'll learn how to align content with Smart Guides, group content and work with groups, and align content with the Align options. To follow along, you can open this practice file from the downloadable practice files for this tutorial. To make sure that you can see the entire page, choose View, Fit Page and Window. Then, to zoom in over here, select the Zoom tool in the Tools panel and drag from left to right to zoom in here. As you move content, Smart Guides can help align content and appear as temporary snap-to guides. Smart Guides are turned on by default, and with nothing selected, they can be found in the Properties panel on the right here. With them on, to see how they work, select the Selection tool in the Tools panel. Then press and drag this text frame to the right. As you drag, you should see a series of green horizontal lines telling you it's in line with its original position. When it's aligned with the left edge of the object above, release the mouse button. With the text aligned to this line, it'd be helpful to keep this content together so they can be moved as one object, which is where grouping comes in. Starting off the left edge of the document, press and drag across to select this content. You'll also select the image behind. Now to deselect the image and not the other objects, press the Shift key and click the image to remove it from the selection. Shift clicking lets you add or remove content from a selection. To keep the objects together, you'll group them. So click the Group button at the bottom of the Properties panel on the right. They're now grouped and treated like a single object. Click away from the content, then click on any part to select the group. You can tell it's a group because both objects are now selected and there's a dashed bounding box around it. Now if you need to be able to select one of the objects and not the entire group, to do that you can either ungroup the objects by clicking the Ungroup button here, but then you'll have to group them again, or you can do it another way. double-click the red line to select it. Double-clicking content in a group allows you to select just that object. In the Properties panel to the right of the document, click the stroke color and choose black. You can press Escape to hide this panel. Now you'll align some of the content using Align options. Starting off the left edge of the document, drag across to select all of this content. By dragging, you also selected the image behind again. To deselect the image and not the other objects, press the Shift key and click the image to remove it from the selection. Now in the Properties panel on the right, click Align Left Edges. Notice that the rightmost object aligned to the leftmost object. So that you can see everything out here, choose View, Fit Page and Window. Now the image in the background needs to be aligned to the center of the page, so click to select the image. In the Properties panel, click the Align To menu and choose Align to Page so that the image aligns to the page and not to other objects. Then click the Align Horizontal Centers button to align the image to the horizontal center of the page. Now that you have a basic understanding of aligning and grouping content, you can more easily organize and position your own content. Experiment with grouping objects and aligning to see how they can help you work faster and smarter. When adding content to your InDesign projects, you can create non-printing guides that help you align content easily. In order to align this content a set distance from the edge of the page, you'll create what's called a ruler guide. So you can follow along, you can open this practice file from the downloadable practice files for this tutorial. Now in order to create a guide, you need to show the page rulers. So with nothing selected, in the Properties panel, click the Rulers option here. Rulers appear at the top of the document window and along the left edge. They reflect the units you initially set. In this case it was inches. To change the units, you can actually right-click either ruler and choose a new unit. You need to do that for both rulers to change them both. Now rulers are a great way to visually see the position of content relative to the upper left corner of the page. You can see the 0 on both rulers, horizontal and vertical, starts here. To create a horizontal guide, you drag from the horizontal ruler up here. To create a vertical guide, you drag from the vertical ruler on the left. This and other content that will be added later needs to align a set distance from the right edge of the page, so a vertical guide is necessary. Move the pointer over the vertical ruler, press and drag from the ruler into the document. As you drag, a measurement label showing the distance from the left edge of the page, also called the X value, appears. Drag until you see about 7 inches in the label, and then release to place the guide. With the selection tool selected, click away from the guide to deselect it. Move the pointer over the guide, and when the pointer shows a little box next to it, click to select the guide. Guides are like objects you draw. They can be selected easily and deleted by pressing backspace or delete. You can also easily reposition guides by dragging, or in the Properties panel to the right of the document, you can position a guide by entering or choosing a value. The X here means the X or horizontal axis, basically how far the guide is from the left edge of the page. To fit with our design, this guide needs to be 1 inch from the right edge of the page. To measure from the right edge of the page and not the left, you can reset where the 0 on the rulers begins. To do that, drag from the corner of the rulers where they meet. This is called the 0 point, to the upper right corner of the page. The pointer should snap to the edge of the page. If you now look at the horizontal ruler, the 0 on the ruler starts on the right edge of the page. The guide should still be selected, but if you look in the Properties panel, the X is a negative number, or to the left of the 0 starting point. Change the X value to -1, so it's 1 inch from the right edge of the page. Press Enter to return. Now to reset that 0 point, which you should do, so later measurements and positioning start in the upper left corner of a page, double-click back in the corner where the rulers meet. The 0 on the horizontal and vertical rulers should be back in the upper left corner of the page. Now you'll position this content. So drag this group to the right, and as you drag, press the Shift key to drag the group straight across. When the right edge comes close enough to the guide and the pointer changes to a white arrow, release the mouse and then the key to snap the group to the guide. So that you don't accidentally move a guide or delete them, you can lock them temporarily. click away from the content to deselect it, and in the Properties panel to the right, click the Lock Guides option. To hide the guides temporarily, you can click the Hide Guides option here. Click it again to show the guides. Setting guides can be a great way to align content. Now that you know the basics of working with them, you can add guides to your own projects. You can even add them to master pages to apply them to multiple pages at once. You'll learn more about master pages in another video in the tutorial on multi-page documents.